First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you're watching. We do appreciate you being here. Of course, we're live streaming on our social media channels, our apps, our website. So all great places to find us. And today, we're actually taking a look back at some of the really interesting interviews that we've had here on the show. There's a lot of them. You can always find them at our Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel. But I highlighted three things that I think are a little bit interesting here for this next hour. The first one is an exclusive look at the Soho House. Yes, the Soho House is a very exclusive club that is coming to Portland, and I actually got to go and take a look at the construction as it's happening here in Portland with the founder, Nick Jones. So that is an on-site video we're going to be watching. You'll get to see that. We'll talk to them about what the Soho House is, what it's going to include. Up next, after that, we're going to talk about volcanoes, completely switching gears. As you all know, we are surrounded by volcanoes here in the Northwest, and what do those earthquakes mean when we start hearing about those on Mount Hood? Well, I speak to an expert about that who really goes in depth as far as talking about what's happening, what concerns should we have, should we not have, all that's going to be there. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with flying cars. Yes, flying cars, the promise of the future, may be here sooner than expected. And I speak with the company who is actually on the way to developing one of those. We'll discuss what that is. Will we actually see one in our lifetime or within the next couple of years even? All that's going to be covered as well. So thanks for joining us today. That's what's coming up. Let's get right to it here now, though, with Soho House. All right, Nick, we're here at the Troy Laundry Building, an active construction site, very active, as we're going to see here as we walk in for the Soho House for Portland. I'm here with Nick. You're going to give us a tour of what we're doing. This is going to be the main entrance, I understand?
I'd love to. This is the main entrance. It's a brilliant, beautiful building built in the late 18th century. It was a laundrette, as you said. But come on in. Come and welcome to the house. In you come up the stairs, we're in the lobby here.
So this is where it's kind of envisioning, like we said, active construction, so we're in a lot of voices.
Yeah.
That's part of it. But as we walk in, so this is going to be the main entrance.
Main entrance, you come in
Take
here.
a look at your vision here.
You come in here. This is the reception area where you get a warm welcome. Hello, Greg, how are you? You know, what are you coming to do today? Do you want to go to the workspace? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to just hang out? What do you want to do? So the gym area is through here.
You know, I wish I had.
So this is the gym area here.
So all this will be the gym.
All this will be the gym, and then there's a separate staircase going up to the gym changing rooms. And then the main staircase for the club is at the back there, yet to go in, and that takes you to the second floor, it takes you to the rooftop, but there's also an elevator as well, obviously, which is to come in. So let's go upstairs.
Yeah, let's take a look. What would we be seeing right here?
So this is the workspace, the workroom, where members can just hang out and work and use their laptops, make their phone calls. They can use it like their office.
Okay.
There's other spaces they can do that as well, but this is dedicated just to work. You come through here.
And you confirm too, November is when you're planning on opening.
Yeah, are you doubting me, Greg?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It is definitely November. We got a brilliant developers on this.
No, this is, yeah.
So you go through to the club here.
Okay.
And this, the bar is over there, and this is all club space where people can relax and read a book, have a conversation, have something to eat. They can do whatever they want. It's like a big sitting room, a big room that you might have at home. Or in here, it's going to be the music room. You can see the outline of where the stage is going.
Okay, stage back there.
And then this is going to be a bar up that in there. So this is going to be members' events, music, film. You know, discussions, all sorts of things are going to happen in here. And then we walk through here into the...
Walking through the club right here. And
the club. And in here, we go into the into the dining room. There's a sort of parlour area to start with, which again you can just have a drink at. The visual kitchen goes over here, and then over here is the main house kitchen stroke dining room.
And I do see, you know, the nice. Is that going to be I'm assuming, window space?
Lots of windows. In fact, it's going to be very light in here. There's a lot of windows.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then the staircase will continue to go up to the roof where you'll have the swimming pool with the great views over Portland.
I want to know, though, how you feel after all these years. You know, you opened that first Soho House. You went through all of that experience. You opened up your second one. How does it feel now, after all these years, to be here opening yet another one in a completely new location?
Well, I feel just as nervous as I did on the first one, which was 29 years ago. We come into a new city, a fabulous city. Portland is a great city, and we have to prove to Portland that we are worthy to be here. So I'm excited but nervous.
So even walking around here after doing this many times, knowing exactly what you want, there's still nerves.
Oh, definitely, and I hope that continues, because if you're not nervous, you're not on the top of your game.
Well, I want to talk more about the history of it and everything too, but I have to ask this. You know, this is one question that I think a lot of people in Portland are asking. You know, you have all these different locations you can go to. What made you select Portland?
Well, Portland is a fabulous city full of fabulous people. You know, it's creative, it's diverse, there's a lot of interesting people here. And, you know, why, if we go to Nashville and we go to Austin, why don't we go to Portland? That's why we're here.
And that's why you're here. Well, looking at it, you know, from being here in the city of Portland, have you been here before many times?
I haven't been here many times. I'm learning all the time. We have a team who are out here all the time, but I'm learning. But every time I come and I learn, I find what a fantastic city it is.
Talk to me about some of the theory behind Soho House coming in, and this is for, you know, education for everybody here. I know incorporating some of the community in is something that you try to do. Can you talk to us about how you go about that?
It's very important that we're inclusive into the community, and what we are is we're a house. We're a home away from home, where we try and bring together people with a creative mind, interesting, kind people, where they have a space which has all sorts of things within that space, from gymnasium to member events to a music room to F&B of bars and restaurants to a swimming pool on the roof. And what we want our members to do is come and use it how they want to use it. They can come and work from here, they can come and get fit from here, they can come and eat from here, they can come and meet friends here. And our objective for every member is for them to flourish professionally and also to flourish socially.
So looking at the combination of those two, professionally and socially, for people, again, who are unaware of how it works, you know, what is that experience like? Say someone comes into a Soho House or they're a new member, what kind of experience can they expect?
Well, hopefully a very friendly experience, because when you go home, when you go from a home, it's friendly. So it's friendly, there's a can-do attitude. What we want our member to do is to feel that the space is theirs and that they can use it how they want to use it.
Who would you say is an ideal member or a member candidate?
Well, everyone's an ideal member. You know, they need to have a creative mind. They need to be kind. They need to be decent, and they need to be able to be like-minded. And when you bring everyone together, it's interesting to see. You know, the reason why I went into hospitality in the first place is because I love a room full of people, interesting people, having great conversations, laughter, eating food, having a drink, and having a good time. And really, this is just an expansion of that, but with much more.
So, looking at the building that we're in here, this is a historic building here in Portland. It's completely being renovated. Was there any decision making behind choosing this area of Portland or the specific location?
Well, this area's got a great amount of history to it. I think it's very much back on the up. It's a fabulous building. It's an old laundrette where laundry used to be cleaned and sent out to everywhere in Portland. And it's got real soul. And we love buildings with real soul. And we've been able to fit in all the things I just described into this fantastic building.
One more question, too, just about the city of Portland. And, you know, this is something that nationally Portland's gone through some tough times over the last couple of years. How do you feel about that, and how did that affect your decision making?
Well, we want to be part of the community here, so we want to be part of Portland through the difficult times and through the good times, and we want to be a house where we can try and help as much as we can. So it didn't affect our decision at all. We're really excited about coming here, and we're really excited to be and really ingrain ourselves into Portland.
Let's go back to talking about you 29 years, since that first house, I believe is what you said, since that first house opened. To this day, you've had so much success with this. What makes you excited to get out of bed and keep on doing this? A lot of people would just stop. Just be like, okay, I've had the success. Why keep going?
Well, I do it because I love what I do. I love creating new houses. It's super exciting coming into new cities. I mean, I probably would have never come to Portland unless it was for Soho House. So being able to have done that in my life and to meet the people of Portland is something very special. And to be able to create a space in Portland which hopefully we will earn the respect of people of Portland, that is an important part of the community here. That is exciting.
If Portland House, when it opens, I believe in November, I think is when the official opening is, do you have any other further expansion plans on the West Coast?
We're always looking. I mean, we are opening this year in Mexico City as well. We got exciting plans for next year. So there's always new houses on the horizon.
How do you, I guess, let me ask you this way. Do you have maybe a dream location that you haven't opened one up yet that you want to?
I mean, the great thing about Soho House is there's plenty of cities out there in the world, and we've only actually touched only a few of them. So there's many exciting cities we want to go to.
Well, I think maybe we should take a look at take a look at some of this and walk through the floor plans and everything that you have here.
Okay, we can talk about it when we talk about food and drink, because it's all local.
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah. I want to have kind of each one of these. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We brought up the fact that Portland, has a lot of community influences that they like to bring into different things. They like to work together. How do you incorporate that into your planning here for the inside of the building?
Everything is local. We're going to go local chef. We're going to go local restaurant to operate our restaurants. We're going to have all the members' events are going to be locally created. We're not coming from other cities and bringing other cities into Portland. We want to learn from Portland, and we want people from Portland running all our activities within the house.
So all that's
be it coffee, be it wine, be it food, be it members' events, be it gym classes, it will all come local from Portland.
And how are you going about curating that? You're just discovering things that you like here, working with different local vendors?
Exactly. So we're on that journey at the moment. If anyone wants to be part of it, get in contact with us, but we want this place to be totally local.
Well, let's take a look, speaking of local, let's take a look at the building right here, a historic building.
We're a historic building, the old Troy Laundrette, built, I think, in late 18th century. And we have taken pretty well the whole building, and on the first floor is going to be the gymnasium. The second floor is the members club, and the members club obviously has a bar, a restaurant. It has a music room. It has a music room which is multi-purpose, where you can watch movies and you can have discussions, etc. There's a workspace there as well, because we really want our members to come and use the house exactly how they want to use the house. And then we sort of just go through the pictures here, and we have the lobby, the reception, the gym area, which I've just spoken about. We then move up the stairs and we go into the bar area. We go into the restaurant, house kitchen area, as we call it.
Let's take a look at this bar area. What was some of the influence for the design here?
Well, again, all the materials that come from Portland, all the tiles, all the wood, a lot of the furniture design has come from Portland. So we really wanted to incorporate that into making this a very local house.
That's great. So it's not just the food and the catering and that side of things.
It's everything. Every material is locally sourced. Every tile is being made in Portland, which has gone up on the walls. So we've worked with a lot of local craftsmen to be able to create the house here.
Is that something that you do at every location, or is that specific to Portland?
No, we do it in every location, because even though we're global, the only way this is going to succeed is if it succeeds locally, and that is which is really important to us.
And we can do that again. Construction site, so there's lots of noise going on for everybody. Yeah. Even for whoever's watching this part right now, that's just how it goes with these things. So I love the fact that that it is incorporating everything. So I think that's very interesting. Working with everyone. Taking a look right here, what do we have?
Well, that's going to be the restaurant space.
Okay.
We haven't yet announced who we're partnering with to do the food, but that will be forthcoming. but it will be local again. I mean, the food scene here in Portland is mind-boggling. It's so good, so much talent in the city.
And you haven't settled on what that menu is going to be, or
we're in that process at the moment.
And so for the restaurant, for the kitchen like this would be for members only?
Yes, you have to be a member to get in here, and there's two forms of membership. There's local house members, so you just become a member of the local house, or if you want every house membership, which gives you entry into our other 41 houses around the world. And there's an under 27 version of a membership and over 27 version of a membership, so they're all priced slightly differently.
Okay. Going along here, continuing on to look, I know this is, I believe, the rooftop?
This is the rooftop, which hopefully is pretty unique in Portland, that we have this fantastic swimming pool with great views going across the city, and people can lounge around and relax.
Now, I love the idea of an outdoor pool and a rooftop bar in Portland, but it does rain 9 months of the year.
Well, we have these pools everywhere in our houses in England, and it rains quite a lot there, but people still go swimming in them.
Nice. So this will be open year-round?
Yes, year-round.
All right. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, this is all, again, taking a look here. Anything else you want to add in or let us know about as far as this?
Well, I mean, I think pretty unique, the pools in our houses, and it's great to have one in Portland. But the point I want to make is that, what we're creating here is a very local house, which basically a member can come and create whatever they want to do in this house. So they can work from it, they can meet new people from it, they can have their meetings from it, they can eat, drink, watch bands, watch discussions, go to the gym. You could be here from the moment we open in the morning to the moment we close at night and just keep on changing what you're doing.
Are there members of Soho already here in Portland?
Oh, yes. Yes, there are. And we've got tremendous amount of interest in the membership here. Between now and when we open towards the end of the year, that will continue.
For everybody who's watching, can you explain exactly what the observatory does and what your role is there?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Greg. I am the scientist in charge of the Cascades Volcano Observatory, basically the director of the observatory. And the Cascades Volcano Observatory is one of 5 volcano observatories within the USGS Volcano Hazard Program. We are responsible for monitoring volcanoes from Mount Baker up near the Canadian border down through Crater Lake down by the southern Oregon border. Our mission here at the Cascade Volcano Observatory is to conduct hazard assessments and research on the histories and processes of eruptions in our Cascades volcanoes, to monitor those volcanoes, to try to attempt to provide the earliest possible detection of any unrest that might be going on in order to provide early warning to local emergency management authorities, and to basically conduct outreach and education of local management authorities and the public to help make their communities volcano ready in the event of a future eruption of the Cascades.
I definitely want to talk about that side of things as well. Going back to, how many volcanoes are there within the range that you monitor?
Yeah, so right now we are monitoring, we have tabs on about 9 of the volcanoes within the Cascade range. Several years ago, the USGS did what they call a threat ranking of all the volcanoes within the United States and its territories. And your viewers may be surprised to know that among the 5 observatories within the Volcano Hazard Program, we are responsible collectively for monitoring some 160 active or potentially active volcanoes in the United States and its territories.
Wow.
Several years ago, a group of folks within the Volcano Hazard Program they call it a threat ranking or a threat analysis. And this is a kind of a ranking that is based upon the frequency of eruption of a volcano, the type of eruptions that the volcano undergoes, and the societal assets that may be at risk, be it communities or infrastructure or whatever. And the rankings ranged everywhere from very high threat volcanoes down to very low threat. Here in the Cascades, we actually have 8 volcanoes that are classified as very high threat volcanoes because of their frequency of eruption, the type of eruptions, and the societal assets potentially at risk, and 1 high threat volcano. So we pay close attention to those 9 volcanoes within the Cascade range.
So with that ranking, now I've got to know where that all stands. So what is the most, I guess, the highest risk volcano?
It depends on how you want to classify that. Mount St. Helens is definitely one of the ones that's considered very high threat simply because of the frequency of eruptions at Mount St. Helens. It's the most actively erupting volcano in the Cascades, and there are societal assets that aren't too far down valley and downwind of the volcano. But Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, Newberry Volcano, Three Sisters, and Crater Lake are the ones that are considered to be potentially very high threat. And then Mount Adams is one that's considered to be potentially high threat. Within the volcanoes here in the Cascades, as you're showing now, our volcanoes are all snow-clad, lots of snow and ice on our volcanoes. And because of that, that's a potential water source that's located on the volcanoes. So one of the big things we worry about here in the Cascades are what we call these large volcanic mud flows. That if a volcano erupts, that snow and ice can melt. That melting can then erode a bunch of the sediment that's on the volcanoes and down in the valleys that drain off the volcanoes. And it can send these large volcanic mud flows. And think of a river of cement slurry or a thick soupy milkshake. So that these flows can travel many, many tens of miles down valley. And so these are one of the biggest threats from our volcanoes in the Cascades, particularly to the communities to the west, because all our rivers ultimately end up draining to the west of the Cascades. But in addition to that, when these volcanoes erupt, they put big ash plumes up into the atmosphere, and the wind will carry that ash many tens, hundreds of miles downwind. And so the communities to the east of the Cascades, such as, for example, Spokane and places in eastern Washington and eastern Oregon, their biggest threat is volcanic ashfall, as you're showing here. So those are the two big hazards we worry about here in the Cascades. Fortunately, most of our volcanoes are remote. We don't have lots of densely populated areas very close to the volcanoes. So a number of processes that these volcanoes are capable of, like lava flows and landslides and other types of processes that typically affect areas that are maybe within 15-ish, 20-ish miles of a volcano. We don't have a lot of assets other than maybe some infrastructure exposed very close to the volcanoes. But nevertheless, communities that are very far downwind or very far downstream are still potentially affected. The volcano will come to them, so to speak.
Right. I mean, I think looking at all of the old footage too of Mount St. Helens, as far as those lahars and the mud flow, coming down the river there and just knocking things out. I mean, you can still see the evidence of that today, which is definitely, nerve-wracking a little bit just being that close to it. Not that that happens that often. And I think, looking at it from that standpoint too of trying to monitor these, and make sure that you know what's going on. Can you walk us through that process, like the science behind that of how you monitor these volcanoes?
Sure, absolutely. So we sort of have, you can kind of think of three arrows in our quiver with regard to our monitoring. So as magma moves up toward this ground surface, it has to break a pathway. So it's got to break rock and make a pathway to the surface. And when it breaks that rock, it causes earthquakes. So one of the things we watch for around volcanoes are earthquakes. We look at the size of the earthquake, the frequency, how frequently they're happening. Are they changing depth as a function of time? So are they getting shallower, indicating that magma might be getting closer to the surface? So we've got an array of instruments across the landscape at these volcanoes to monitor for earthquakes. Another arrow in our quiver is monitoring of volcanic gases. So as magma approaches the surface, it will release some of the dissolved gases within the magma. And in particular, two gases we watch for are carbon dioxide, CO2, and sulfur dioxide, SO2. And so we periodically monitor the volcanoes. We have a group that can do overflights, and they can monitor from the air the volcanic gases that are being emitted by our volcanoes. And what they're watching for are changes in background level. The third arrow in our quiver is looking for changes in the ground surface. So think of a water balloon. As you pump more water into a water balloon, that water balloon is going to expand, and the surface of that water balloon is going to lift. And as magma approaches the surface of the Earth, or if a magma chamber is really beginning to fill and swell with magma, the ground surface around the volcanoes will actually begin to uplift and deform a little bit. And we have technology, GPS technologies, very much like the GPS technologies in your car, allow us basically to measure very fine scale changes in the surface of the ground. And we can monitor that both with instruments we have on the ground. We have GPS sensors on the ground, and we can also monitor that with satellite technologies from space. So those are the three kind of main things we watch for. And depending on combinations of what we see, it can tell us whether or not magma is moving toward the ground surface, and then we can try to interpret whether that's going to ultimately end up in an eruption or not. I think one of the things that's really interesting is as your viewers will look across the landscape and they'll look at Mount Hood or Mount St. Helens or Mount Rainier or any of the other volcanoes, they look like these nice stately monoliths just sitting there very quietly on the landscape. And they're really anything but. These volcanoes are very chatty, some of them much more chatty than others. And so earthquakes are happening all the time. And Mount St. Helens, we get earthquakes all the time at Mount St. Helens. So one of the things that we try to do with our monitoring is we really want to understand what's typical background, typical behavior at these volcanoes. And the more instrumentation we have and the longer our records are, we get a better sense of what's kind of typical at these volcanoes. And then we want to watch for what's out of the ordinary, because it's what's out of the ordinary that gets our attention and will give us some information on whether the volcano might be building toward an eruption or not.
Well, I know there's been at least 6 earthquakes at Mount Hood over just the last couple of days or few days. Is that typical for that many earthquakes to be happening at Mount Hood?
Sure. So on Tuesday afternoon, there was a magnitude 3 earthquake that happened just a little bit south of the summit, but at a depth of about 1 or 2 miles below sea level. And this kind of earthquake has happened at Mount Hood in the past. In fact, there was another earthquake of a similar character that happened in about the same location at Mount Hood back in April, but it was a magnitude 2.2, so a little bit smaller. If you go back and look through the earthquake catalog, you will find that since about 1982, there have been over 20 earthquakes of this type that have occurred at Mount Hood in about the same location and of the same character. In 1989, there was a similar one that was about a magnitude 3.5. So the one that happened Tuesday is the largest one that's happened since about 1989. In addition to those types of earthquakes at Mount Hood, it's very common for Mount Hood to have sort of seasonal bursts of seismic activity a little bit further to the south, kind of south of government, down in the government camp area, maybe a little farther south. So this is very typical when we see this a lot. So at the moment, we're not too concerned. We're keeping an eye on it. I mean, if we start to see more of these types of earthquakes, or we start to see larger earthquakes, then of course that's going to get our attention, and we'll, definitely really start to pay pretty close attention. But right now, we've seen these types of earthquakes happen at Mount Hood in the past, so it's not out of the ordinary, but it's something to keep our eye on.
I don't know if there's a percentage you can put on it, as far as, obviously it is a volcano, it's an active volcano. What percentage would you say is the chance that this could erupt, say, in the next 15 years?
It's probably pretty low. I mean, the last several eruptive periods, in just really, really round numbers, Mount Hood last erupted, let's say, roughly 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and 20,000 years ago, really ballpark. I mean, those are really round numbers. So, is it due for an eruption? There's no due date, so to speak. So I think right now the probability of eruption at Mount Hood is relatively low. Perhaps the volcano that most likely will erupt again in the Cascades is Mount St. Helens. It's the one that's been by far the most active in the last several thousands of years. It's the one that has been the most recent eruptions, and so it's the one that's most likely to erupt again, particularly in our lifetimes. Just to give your viewers a little bit of kind of put things in context a little bit, when you average over, say, the last 10,000 years, we get about 2 eruptions per century in the Cascades. So on a single human lifetime, that's not very much, doesn't sound like much. But if you're thinking, if you're a land use planner or emergency management planner, You have to be thinking about generational timeframes when you're designing critical facilities and other things like that. And so, so 2 eruptions per century, yeah, that's something you probably have to think about a bit. But just to put it in context, wildfires occur all the time, annual basis. Floods occur on an annual basis. So we want our communities to be volcano ready. We want them to know if your local volcano should ramp up toward an eruption, what are the things you need to be concerned about? What are the hazards that are posed by that volcano? What are the things you should do should that volcano erupt? And so these are the kind of public education campaigns that we embark on with local authorities and the public, because we want the communities to be volcano ready, but I don't want anybody out there stressing out, worrying that, hey, my volcano in my backyard is going to explode at any minute.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. What do you do to be prepared? I mean, because we all live within the range, if you're in this side of the Cascades anyway, within the range of this, what should you be doing at home to be prepared just in case?
Well, first of all, just kind of educate yourself on what is the history of the volcano that's in your backyard. If you live in Portland, if you live in Hood River, if you live in, Sandy, if you live in a government camp, what has Mount Hood done in the past? What's its history? And we have lots of public materials available on our website. We have worked with lots of the local emergency management authorities. So just have a sense of what are the hazards. If you are living along a river valley that drains a volcano, yeah, chances are the biggest hazard you have to worry about are these large volcanic mud flows. So if a large volcanic mud flow came down a river valley, you should just have some sense of where is safe ground. So if there was some sort of a warning that was issued by local management authorities of a large volcanic mud flow in progress, just know where you should go. If you live in an area that's potentially affected by volcanic ash, what should you do? Most likely you would shelter in place. Don't go outdoors if volcanic ash is falling. Stay indoors, shelter in place. If you do need to go out, wear a mask that's reasonably decent fitting mask around your mouth because you don't want to breathe in the volcanic ash. Make sure you have, like with any other hazard in the Pacific Northwest, make sure you have supplies on hand for a few days, have plenty of water to last a few days, have plenty of food to last a few days in case you can't get out to the stores. So just the typical normal precautions that you would use for almost any other emergency that you might have. So just educate yourself about, like I said, what the hazards are, know what the particular hazard is in your location, and know what to do if something on that order was to happen.
So general preparedness, kind of like
Exactly.
you prepare for an earthquake or anything
Exactly.
else, having that emergency kit and knowing where to go. I think that is key to find that higher ground. That's definitely something to think
Exactly.
about. Anything else that people should be concerned with, with Mount Hood? Obviously, you said it's nothing to be concerned with right now as far as the earthquakes, but something else you think people should be aware of?
Nothing in particular. Like I said, Mount Hood, it's one of the volcanoes. It's had a history of shedding large volcanic mud flows. They've gone down the Sandy River, the Hood River, the White River. So just be aware. One of the other things that sometimes happens at Mount Hood are these mud flows, they come down. They're not associated with volcanic activity, but there's a lot of loose material up on the flanks of the volcano. And sometimes in the late summer, if we get rapid snow melt, rapid melt of glaciers that can release water floods. Sometimes in the fall, if we get heavy rains that can mobilize some of this sediment, you'll get smaller mud flows that will, run down maybe a few miles off the volcano. And so if you happen to be along the river valleys and you kind of hear a rumbling noise, know how to get to high ground, recognize what that is. Back in, I think it was 2006 or so, there was a late fall, we had a pretty intense rainstorm, and it triggered these volcanic mud flows on a lot of our volcanoes, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, Mount Rainier. Some people I know there's a photo floating around on the internet of a bridge that's just covered in boulders, and that's actually the Highway 35 bridge that goes over the White River. So, in the fall time in particular, just be a little bit aware that that's the season when some of these seasonal mud flows tend to occur on our volcanoes. And like I said, they occur close to the volcanoes. They don't go far away, but White River's an area where a lot of people like to hike. So, just be cognizant of what the weather is. And like I said, if you hear kind of unusual rumbling noise coming down the valley, just, make sure you can get out of the valley.
be aware of that. Yeah, if you hear a rumbling noise, I would definitely be aware, a little bit nervous on that. Well, since I have you on here, and I've got a genuine volcano expert, I thought if I could, pull this up. I've got actually a live shot here from Hawaii of the big eruption that's been going on, and that's certainly been in the news lately too. Can you tell us, what we're looking at here, what's going on with this one?
Sure. This is Kilauea Volcano in Hawaii, Hawaii National Park. And up near the summit of Kilauea, there's a big, we call it a caldera, a big crater. Think of a big soup bowl. And what's happening is that there's a lava lake within the soup bowl. And a few days ago, a new batch of magma worked its way up to the surface, and it broke its way up through the lake and through the crust covering the lake. And we began to have a new eruption at Kilauea Volcano. Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Your viewers may recall that in 2018, Kilauea, rather than having the magma erupt upward and come out in the crater up near the summit of the volcano, the magma actually went down what we call a rift zone. So it moved laterally or horizontally away from the magma chamber as opposed to vertically. And it actually came up on the ground, up out of the ground through a series of what are called fissures and popped up in the middle of a neighborhood. Since that time, Kilauea has mostly been erupting in the summit. Last November, its sister volcano, Mauna Loa, erupted. And for a while, both Mauna Loa and Kilauea were erupting together. In the middle of December, the eruption of Mauna Loa stopped. And I think it was sometime around January or February, the eruption in the crater of Kilauea also stopped. And so we had a bit of a pause. And now a couple days ago, the eruption began to renew in the crater of Kilauea. So what you're looking at is basically the crust. Think of a bowl of soup with a solid crust across the top. French onion soup, if you will, right? If you've ever had a French onion soup, you get the melted cheese and the croutons, and it makes a bit of a crust on the surface, and you got all the liquid soup underneath it. That's what you're looking at here. You've got a crust on the surface of a lava lake within the caldera of the Kilauea volcano. Underneath all that crust, we've got a lot of molten lava. We got a lava lake, but this is the crust. And so what's happening, I see some nice fresh lava there right in the middle. There's a crack in the crust and lava's coming out.
Wow. So very, very hot French onion soup. Then that's all I'm going to think about when I look at that. Well, John, thank you very much for taking some time to talk with us too. This is really, really interesting, just learning about this and, knowing we don't have to worry about Mount Hood necessarily erupting right now. We're not going to have our own Kilauea here in the near future anyway, most likely. But all your information was great. And I know people, you said, can go find out more and educate themselves. Can you tell them where to go to do that?
Yeah, sure. One place is to go to our Cascade Volcano Observatory website. We have lots of information there. You can look for us at the USGS Volcanoes Twitter account. We're always posting information on there. Same with the USGS Facebook account. And we actually have what we call our volcano notification service. And that's something people can actually sign up for. And you will get emails sent to you whenever we put out updates or information statements, and you can restrict it to just the Cascades volcanoes, or you can get information on all the volcanoes from all the observatories. And so if people were interested in Kilauea, the Volcano Notification Service was sending out information statements about what was going on at Kilauea here. But one thing I'll just leave your viewers with is that, if any of the volcanoes begin to act up or start to show signs of potentially moving into unrest, we will certainly be putting out information. And so if people have any questions, there's a lot of stuff oftentimes that gets posted on Twitter that's misinformation. And so if people are really curious, come to us. We'll be the trusted authority. We're not trying to hide anything from people. So if people have any questions, visit us at our website. You can send us questions and we will answer them.
John, thank you very much. This has been really nice having you on here. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your time. And I will be going there to find out more about the volcanoes. I'm Greg Nibbler. Appreciate you being here with us. We broadcast live every weekday right around 1 p.m. Pacific, and we are here with you right now. We get to have some great conversations on this show, including talking about how transportation could be changing for you. Are you tired of being stuck in traffic for your commute? Well, there's a company that thinks they might have a solution for that, and that is a flying car that could leap over the cars that are around you and do a lot more than that. A lot of things going on with this. I am joined right now by Jim Duchovny from Aleph Aeronautics. And Jim, I want to say thank you very much for taking some time to talk to us today. I know you've been very busy. I've seen reports about your vehicle. I've actually kind of followed it for the last couple of years. And now there is a big milestone that just happened. But for everybody out there who's watching, can you tell us about your company and what it is you're trying to do?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, what we're trying to do is exactly what you said. We're trying to relieve all the traffic problems which are happening in the world right now. We're trying to make the world move faster. Now, it's not a simple task. It's not going to be there tomorrow, even though we got like a limited airworthiness certification from FAA right now, which allows us to do more flight testing and some exhibition. There's still going to be some time until you're going to see it in California, Oregon, London, anywhere like in mass. That's going to take still some time. But the idea is we're making small steps, making sure that we relieve the traffic problem, because the main idea is you have the road, right? And the road has a physical constraint. About every 20 years, the amount of cars you put through that road doubles. So imagine in 20 years, you're going to double the amount of cars through the road. That's obviously going to create a problem. Hence, we're trying to make sure the traffic moves up. It's a long conversation, but it's actually safer and more simpler in the air than on the ground.
And like even looking at this here, where you're seeing a car, there's obviously been a rollover or something on the road. This flying car is able to take off, hop over it, and hop right back onto the road. So that's part of the concept that you're looking for.
Right. So this is a simulation, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the ideas is you're going to have some kind of an obstacle, right? And again, we have to work through a whole lot of legal issues still before this needs to happen, and a lot of logistical issues. But yes, the main idea is you're going to have some kind of an obstacle, whether it's a water obstacle, a bay, for example, a mountain, or a traffic obstacle. And what you want to do is you want to leap through that obstacle. That's one of the use cases. Another use case is you go from point A to point B, you drive a little bit, you go up, you turn, as you can see in some of our animation, you turn into the biplane mode, and you very fast go to your destination. So there's multiple modes as you can do it. You can drive, you can vertically take off and hop, what we call over some kind of an obstacle, or you can go in airplane mode and get to your destination fast. Again, it's still going to take some time for it to be in mass in cities.
Right, and that makes sense for anything like this, any monumental change like this. For flying vehicles, there's all the regulations that'll have to come with that. So, speaking with that in mind, knowing that there's those hurdles that'll happen down the road, looking at the vehicle itself, can you tell us how this is constructed? Because I know it is all electric, from my understanding, which is a pretty major point of it. How does it physically work?
Sure. So imagine your regular car, right? Imagine your Toyota, Tesla, Ford, any kind of your regular car. Take away the front and take away the trunk, just leave the cabin, right? Now, in that space, we take the engines and put 4 smaller engines in 4 wheels, right? Now you have all the space left. In that space which is left, you put distributed electric propulsion, which is 8 propeller speed controller motor systems. That's what gets you lift up. With the lift up, and you can go forward, this is the scenario which you see in front of you right now. Another important point is you need, on one hand, solid, on the other hand, something which allows the airflow through on top, right? Like the place before and after the cabin. So they create a mesh, right? Something which is on one hand is semi-solid, on the other hand allows airflow. This is what allows you to go forward. In the biplane mode, what happens is you go up, and one of the sides of the vehicle becomes the top wing, and the other side becomes the bottom wing. So it kind of turns. But the driver does not turn. The driver always sits like this. This is a simulation which you see right now. This is for the long commute. Again, the reason you're seeing simulations and not the real thing is because we just received the, again, FAA limited special awards certification. So we're actually preparing the video, which we hope to release soon, of the real thing actually flying very close to the simulations which you see right now.
And so, going back to one point that you mentioned right there, as far as the driver stays, upright, the driver's not turning on their side. So the cockpit, or whatever you would call that, I guess in that mode, rotates along with the vehicle as the vehicle rotates. So that way you're always staying straight up.
It's easier to describe it if you think of a gimbal camera, like when you move anyway, but stays the same thing. It's easier to describe that the car rotates around the driver and not the cabin. The cabin actually does not rotate. The driver always stays in the same place. Nothing doesn't move left or right. It's actually very stable. It's more stable than when you're flying in an airplane or helicopter, right? So driver is good.
How do you envision this being placed on the roads? Now, I guess walking through a lot of what you just said, being used for commuting. So you're driving part of the way to work, then you hop into this, you go the rest of the way, land, continue on to work, or is it flying all the way to work and back? What is the actual, envisioned use case of this most commonly?
Right. So this is exactly why it gives you all the flexibility, right? The power to do almost anything. Keep in mind that we got a lot of questions. Why do you need to drive at all? You need to drive that, for example, there's a bad weather, you have some obstacles above you for the takeoff, you need to take off somewhere else. So you drive whenever you need to drive. You're more than welcome to drive 100% of the way if you don't incur anything along the way, which kind of stops your regular commute. If you do, however, you're welcome to take off. At this point, you have two options. You either fly without transitioning to the airplane mode, but in this way, you're very energy not efficient. You're kind of like burning through your battery and through your energy. However, if you need to go long distance, you turn into the airplane mode and you fly, and it will get you more than 100-mile distance if you need to do that. So you would choose an optimal scenario based on the road conditions and based on your origin and destination.
And that's about 100
miles. This is the technical part. We still have to work through all the legal part and everything like that, the handoff between the ground infrastructure to the air infrastructure and so on. We're using existing infrastructures both on the ground and in the air today. They already exist. What does not really kind of exist, it exists in some way but needs to be worked out through, is the handoff between the ground and the air.
And that's part of what the testing is that you just got approved for, is that correct?
The testing is more on the technical side. Again, on the technical side, we've been doing some testing in a kind of a more controlled environment. This allows us to do testing in a much bigger environment right now. It's not the technical thing which is interesting here, because we've done everything I just said. Everything I just said we've already done on a real full size. It's logistics and the legal part which needs to be worked out with different authorities. We want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure that everybody's happy, that it's a kind of transportation which helps people, makes people happy, and at the same time does not bother other people.
I think a common question that people might have too is, again, ignoring some of the logistical hurdles as far as regulations and all of that, setting that aside for a second, just as far as the technical side of things. What happens if you run out of battery or something malfunctions while you're flying? What kind of safety mechanisms are there?
Sure. So first of all, there's the reason I'm saying we're trying to make it safer than helicopters and airplanes today. There's a lot of redundancy. So first of all, remember I mentioned 8 distributed electric propulsion. It's independent. One engine goes out, 2 engines goes out, 3 engines goes out. You still have ways to go. So it's much more safer in that aspect than modern helicopters or airplanes. Also, if you're going to have not enough energy, for example, to get to your destination, there are systems which will prevent it and will try to land for you. Something which is just psychologically mostly, but it's for people to feel safer. Yes, there are ballistic parachutes in the worst case scenario. Nothing is going to happen to you. So again, what we're trying to do, we're trying to make sure it's safer than almost any kind of mode of transportation, which you thought helicopter, airplane, and in some cases cars on the ground, right? This is what we're trying to work for. A lot of safety features. Actually, safety started with the drawing on a napkin in a coffee shop when we started talking about it this time. This is why there's so many safety features and the redundancy not only within the system, but between the systems. So we're trying to make sure it's actually safer than something which you use today.
How many years out do you think we are before this is really widely adopted, this form of transportation, by the public in general?
Widely adopted, it's a good addition to that sentence. That all depends. So I always trying to give shout out to FAA because everybody thought they're going to move much slower. They're doing an incredible job considering how few people they have, all the problems with everybody trying to fly during the Independence Day. Considering how few people they have, they're doing an incredible job and moving in an incredible pace. So it's actually maybe sooner than you think. In mass, I would not want to put the number because people keep quoting me. I'm telling the number is a complete guess. And then people quoting me that he said that in 2025, you're going to have your deliveries of every single vehicle. But I think it's actually going to be faster than people think. It's actually going to be sooner than people think. It might be actually faster outside US than in US because FAA is very strict and for good reasons. They have an incredible safety record. But that being said, the pace at which they move, you're going to see it should be seen pretty soon, way sooner than you think, way sooner.
How exciting is this for you, being working on this project? Going from drawing something in a restaurant to now getting an FAA approval for testing.
Right. You have to understand that yes, it's excitement which drives us, but being a startup and solving it. Keep in mind, people try to solve this technical challenge for 100 years. It's an incredibly technically challenging problem. It may look simple from outside. It may look simple the way I described how it works. It's incredibly challenging technically. It's incredibly challenging legally, and the business is also not simple. So yes, on one hand, it's very exciting. For example, my father, he was a famous Leonid Duchovny. He was a famous musician and the famous scientist. Part of what he did was in a spaceships, and he gave the love of science fiction, right? Same thing as my partners, right? My co-founders, the technical co-founders who actually did it. Oleg Petrov, Konstantin Kisley, and Pavel Markin. They're the people who actually did it. I'm more on a business marketing regular side. They're the people who created the flying car. It's incredibly challenging for them. They're actually sleeping on the ward. They don't have time to go home. So yes, it's incredibly exciting. Yes, we're trying to change the world, but it's incredibly challenging at the same time.
Well, it definitely is exciting to see any kind of innovation and change in something like this, and the idea of a shorter commute and being able to fly over other cars. I mean, I'm all for that. So there's a lot to be excited for with this. And I thank you for taking some time. I know you're very busy. I've been seeing there's a lot of people that are very interested in this naturally. I mean, it's really pretty cool product, pretty cool, exciting concept anyway, and we'll see where it goes from there. But Jim, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here on the show. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting.
All right, there we go. Again, thank you everybody for joining us here for Fox 12 Now. Really appreciate all of you tuning in. I've mentioned it before, we're on a lot of different platforms, but also you can go take a look at all of our previous interviews, such as the ones that we just watched at our Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel. We've got a lot of stuff on there, and we're live here every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, bringing you breaking news, deeper dives, interviews, exclusive stories, talking about Portland events, a lot of stuff that we cover here. So make sure you join us. Whatever platform is your favorite, we'll meet you there. And thanks for tuning in. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.